There once was a king named Xerxes who was very rich and powerful. One day he decided to throw a party for all the men who lived in the fortress of Susa, from the greatest to the least. His servants decorated the courtyard with gold and silver and other expensive stones in preparation for the 7-day feast. Once the guests arrived, they enjoyed lots of food and drink. At the same time, Queen Vashti held her own banquet for all the women in the palace. On the 7th day of the celebration, the king told his servants to bring the queen to him. When the servants arrived at the queen's banquet, they told her that the king requested her presence, but the queen refused to come to the king's banquet. When the servants told the king the queen's response, he burned with anger. The king was so upset that he banished Queen Vashti from his presence and announced that he was looking for a new queen. All of the young women in the kingdom heard the announcement, including Esther. She lived in Susa with her cousin Mordecai, who had adopted her into his family after Esther's parents had died. Mordecai worked for the king, but he was a Jew whose family had been forced to leave Jerusalem and live in Babylon. When Mordecai heard the decree, he told Esther that she must not tell anyone about her Jewish heritage or that she worshiped the God of heaven. So Esther, along with the other unmarried women, went to live at the palace. The king's servants took care of the women and gave them beauty treatments in preparation for meeting the king. When it was finally Esther's turn, she dressed in her prettiest gown and went to meet the king. Xerxes was very impressed with Esther, and he decided that she would be the new queen. So he put the royal crown on her head and announced to the kingdom that Esther was now queen. A while later, a man named Haman was promoted to a position of authority over all the nobles in the kingdom. All the king's officials bowed down to Haman whenever he walked by them as a sign of respect for his position, but Mordecai refused to bow down to Haman. This, of course, made Haman very angry. So he came up with a plan to get rid of Mordecai. Haman knew that Mordecai was a Jew, so he told the king that there was a group of people in the kingdom who disobeyed the king's laws and they should be destroyed. He lied to the king about the Jews, but Xerxes got so angry that he told Haman he could have whatever he needed to carry out his plans. Haman seized the opportunity and wrote the decree and sealed it with the king's signet ring. It was law. Some of Queen Esther's servants saw Mordecai and rushed to tell her about her cousin. She was worried about him, so she sent some clothes. But he refused to wear them. Esther then sent another servant to ask Mordecai what was bothering him. Mordecai told him about the horrible things Haman was planning and how Esther was their only hope, and that she needed to go to the king and beg for mercy for her people. When Esther heard Mordecai's request, she sent a message back to him. Everyone knows that if anyone shows up in the king's inner court without being invited, they will be put to death unless the king holds out his gold scepter. Mordecai sent a reply to Esther. Don't think that you are safe just because you are the queen. You are a Jew, and you can't escape the decree. Maybe you were chosen as the queen for such a time as this." After Esther received this message, she sent one final note to Mordecai asking him to gather together all of the Jews in Susa to fast and pray for 3 days. "Then, even though it's against the law and I might die, I will go in to see the king." At the end of the 3 days, Esther put on her most beautiful royal robe, and she entered the king's throne room. When the king saw Esther walk in, he held out his golden scepter and asked, "What do you want? Whatever it is, I will give it to you, even if it is half the kingdom." Queen Esther replied, "If it pleases the king, will you and Haman come to a banquet I have prepared?" The king said yes, and Haman joined the king and the queen for dinner. The king then asked Esther what she wanted, and Esther replied, "If it pleases the king, will you and Haman come again tomorrow? Then I will answer your question." The king said yes, and he and Haman both came back again the next day. While they were eating, the king asked Esther once again what her request was. Esther finally said, "If I have found favor with the king, I ask that my life and the lives of my people be spared, because we have been sold as slaves to be killed." The king was shocked. He replied, "What? Who would do such a horrible thing like that?" Then Esther replied, "It is Haman. He is the one who wants to destroy us." The king was furious and ordered that Haman be immediately punished. Xerxes told Esther to write a new law reversing Haman's orders to destroy the Jews. Esther chose to stand up for what was right, even though it was scary. She prayed about the situation and believed that God would give her strength. Even though she didn't know what was going to happen, she chose to step forward in faith, knowing that God was by her side.